How we win. A blueprint for a successful day of action to achieve a federal education and labor Bill of Rights. Hello, I'm Mark Norberg. I'm an 8th grade English teacher and I'm running for NEA president. The purpose of this video is to discuss the need for a massive mobilization of educators, workers, and their communities to win, once and for all, a federal education and labor Bill of Rights. And more importantly, how to organize such a giant undertaking, why it's really the only way forward, and why it offers us tremendous odds for success. As members of the NEA, we must acknowledge that we are going on 20 plus years of our union not being able to deliver on any of our top priorities: compensation, class sizes, staffing, and funding. We also must acknowledge that unless we change what we have been doing at the national level for the last 20 plus years, we can have no expectation that things will ever be any different. But before I go into my game plan, there's 3 big points that I need to make that everything here is built upon. 3 important factors that I believe any successful union strategy must address. Number 1, electoral politics have failed us. It's time to face facts that we have 2 right-wing parties in this country, and that the party we have consistently aligned ourselves with, the Democrats, is one of them. Now, I know that sounds really extreme, and as a lifelong Democrat myself, it feels extreme to say it. But that's the job of leadership, facing reality and speaking the hard truths. And the reality is, on paper at least, on the really big issues that are facing us today, the ones that impact us most profoundly, there simply is no real difference anymore between the 2 parties. Neither party wants the Green New Deal. Neither party wants Medicare for all. Neither party wants universal college or forgiveness of student loan debt. Neither party wants an expansion of unions. Neither party wants an end to our endless wars. And certainly, neither party wants to get money out of politics. So when we ask, well, why is it that we've not been able to deliver on any of our top priorities for the last 20 plus years, the reason becomes obvious. We don't have a major political party fighting for us, for our needs, and for the needs of labor. That was the Democrats. But they have long since abandoned us, despite their rhetoric, to their Wall Street donors. For them, in any choice between the working class and corporate America, they are far more afraid of angering their corporate donors than they are of us. And why wouldn't they be? We've continued to support them through the years regardless. We need to change that calculus. For any labor plan to succeed, it must confront that reality by doing one of 2 things. Either A, creating a situation in which congressional leaders become more afraid of disappointing workers than they are of disappointing their donors, or creating a situation in which the donors begin supporting the demands of the workers, which means a strategy outside of the system, pushing on both of these players, which, lucky for us, is the whole point and purpose of a union. Which leads to my next big point, number 2. Fighting locally is high cost, low reward. When we do use our union to fight the system, we consistently choose to fight at the local level. But the truth of the matter is, there isn't enough money at the local level to get us everything we want. Now, yes, there have been some big local wins, but for most of us, when we go into battle at the local level, it's almost always just to maintain the status quo. Because again, with the money that's available there, that's the best we can do. And remaining at the local level will doom us to meager victories. Like my union in Burbank, who spent the last several months fighting just to stop funding cuts. I'm tired of fighting for lowered expectations. I'm tired of fighting out of panic, and I'm tired of fighting for scraps. We should be fighting to make our education system the best in the world. which means that number 3, direct action at the federal level, is the only way to go. And it's the only way to go because that's where the money is. We are not only the richest country in the world, but the richest country the world has ever seen. We need to fight to make our schools world class, not because it's some lovely dream, but because with our $21 trillion economy, that is what we are capable of. Fighting nationally has other advantages. If a local strike in one city has the power to smash through the entrenched bureaucracy and turn the tide of public opinion, imagine what we could achieve if the NEA coordinated a national strike. Imagine if we took all of our small, siloed battles and joined together to wield the full power of the world's largest labor union to demand that this country start making our schools the gold standard of the world. And another thing about national strikes, they're no more work than a local one, at least from the perspective of a local union. You're doing basically the same thing, but if you win a local strike, you only win locally, and typically those gains need to be relitigated every couple years. But if you win at the national level, where the victories are codified into federal law, which is what we'd be fighting for, everybody wins, coast to coast, and the gains are far more secure. And in mathematical terms, at the national level, the odds are in our favor. I'll use my home state, California, as an example. In Burbank, when we go up against our school board, that's 848 union members to 5 school board members, or a ratio of 170 to 1. It's not bad. Yet, when we take the fight to the state level, we have a ratio of 310,000 union members to 120 members of the state legislature. Now that's 2,500 to 1. Better still. But if we were to take our fight to the national level, we would have a ratio of 3.2 million members to 535 members of Congress, or a nearly 6,000 to 1 ratio. Keep those numbers in mind. They're going to become very important in a moment. Because with that, let's talk about how we win. If you agree with everything I've just said, if you agree that we must start looking outside of the political system and that banding together in order to move our fight from the local level to the federal is the optimal path, the first thing we'll need to do is phase 1, drafting our demands. Engagement and buy-in for any national action will be key. And so rather than our executive team working out the details in secret, all of our union members will participate democratically using a grassroots, bottom-up process to draft our Education Bill of Rights. 10 items we want the federal government to start paying its fair share of. Now, what those 10 demands are will be determined by what a majority wants. I have a separate video on my website where I go into details of what a federal Education Bill of Rights might look like, so be sure to check that out. Regardless, while we are engaging with each other, debating and discussing our ideas, I will commit to spending my time on the road, going from state to state, reaching out to all our locals by holding rallies and town halls and highlighting our trending proposals. Now, ideally, we'll also bring on board as many additional labor unions as possible, the AFL-CIO, National Nurses United, and others. And while we work on our Education Bill of Rights, they will draft amongst themselves a Labor Bill of Rights. Once our demands have been ratified by our respective unions, we move on to phase 2, publicizing our demands. We'll use the power of our national unions to hold a major press conference to announce to the entire country our Bill of Rights, the date of our coast-to-coast Educator and Labor Day of Action, and our intention to launch a national strike if Congress does not agree to pass these proposals by the time of our March on Washington. Following this announcement, the real work begins with Phase 3, the ramp-up to our Day of Action. here's where things start to get really interesting and exciting, because now our members, each and every one of them, is going to have lots to do. And we'll have the time to do it, because we'll give ourselves a good month or two between the publicizing of our Bill of Rights and our coast-to-coast March on Washington. First, a list is drawn up and publicized of all the members of Congress who have not immediately signed on to our demands. Next, our union members are divided up into teams and assigned a specific member of Congress to target for Operation Congressional Pressure Cooker. Now remember how I mentioned we have a 6,000 to 1 advantage? Well, here's where that statistic becomes a powerful reality. We will strategically assign 6,000 people to each member of Congress. Imagine 6,000 people focused on phone calling, text banking, letter writing, and protesting out on the street for each specific congressperson. We could grind each of these members' offices to a halt just by jamming up their phone lines. And that 6,000 number only holds true if no one in Congress aligns with us and if it is just our teachers' union that participates. But we can be sure we'll have at least some allies in Congress, and if the AFT joins us, if the AFL-CIO joins us, and the National Nurses United comes on board, that ratio could balloon to over 31,000 to 1. 31,000 plus people assigned to each obstinate member of Congress, all with specific tasks to create pressure for our demands. Those charged with calling, letter writing, and text banking can be from anywhere. But because of our national reach, we'll be able to assign on-the-ground teams for each politician, not only to their Washington office, but their home state offices as well. And once a member of Congress folds and signs on to our demands, those union members previously assigned to them would be immediately reassigned to the holdouts, which only increases the numbers and the pressure on those remaining as time goes on. But these targeted teams will not just be pressuring politicians. We're going to go after them where it really hurts, their donors. We will publish the names of all the corporations and big money interests that fund these politicians, and we will launch nationwide boycotts against them. And just like their members in Congress, we'll have assigned teams working on these donors with calling campaigns, text banking, letter writing, and on-the-ground protests. And again, remember, for every politician that folds, we reassign our members to expand the pressure on the holdouts. And we won't stop until we have 2/3 of Congress signed on board. We're going to ignore Trump or Biden or whomever becomes president, because we're not going to play around with worrying about a veto. But finally, the big day will arrive, and we'll move to Phase 4, our March on Washington and a coast-to-coast day of action. Here's where we let the nation see just how big and organized 17 million union members can be. In Washington, D.C., we'll pack the National Mall with 2 million plus proud union members standing up for their rights, while the NEA and our brother and sister unions organize tens of millions in simultaneous marches at every single school district in the country. And we'll celebrate those allies that have joined us, our local communities, the PTA, business leaders, and the like. Now, on our big day, one of two things is going to happen. We'll either be able to announce that we have a 2/3 majority, that our Education and Labor Bill of Rights is going to be passed, or we'll announce the final holdouts in Congress. We'll announce those remaining members who, despite the calls of millions of workers, nurses, and educators, would still rather protect the needs of the corporate elites than vote with us. And we'll announce something else: the start of our official national strike clock. We'll unveil a giant stopwatch to begin the countdown to our national strike. But we'll be very fair to Congress. We'll give them the same amount of time they took to deliberate and approve our $7 trillion boondoggle in Iraq. We'll give Congress 9 days to agree to our demands. And failing to do that, we move on to our final Phase 5, our national strike and boycott of corporate America. This is where we now take Congress out of the equation by shutting the entire system down, where we don't make just the donors to the holdouts feel the heat. We make all of corporate America feel our pain by not just refusing to work, but by boycotting the top corporate donors to all of Congress. And we won't go back to work until all of our members vote to go back to work. Personally, I doubt our plans would even need to go this far. If we demonstrate from the beginning a disciplined, motivated, and organized front, we'll scare our elected leaders into action. Now, in closing, I want to highlight several of the benefits of pursuing a plan of this size. First, unlike our current national strategy of trying to get a seat at the table and convince the Democrats or Republicans even to prioritize education, this follows the blueprint of historically successful union actions. Second, unlike our current national strategy, which relegates the majority of union members to being spectators, this plan requires all of us to have all hands on deck and with specific, actionable, and effective tasks. Third, unlike our current national strategy, which pits our local unions against our local school boards, local businesses, and local communities, taking our fight to the federal level mitigates those pressures. And there is every reason to believe that these sometime adversaries will become allies in the fight for federal relief. To conclude, if after watching this video, you do not feel that this is the best plan to move our union forward, I urge you to at least consider what I have said about the need for a big, bold, national strategy, one scaled to fit the size of our problems, in order to win, once and for all, the kind of federal funding we need to make our schools the best in the world and our workers the most respected. Let us commit to a future where we can't remember a time when our country didn't consider the education of our children or the protection of our most vulnerable our first and most sacred duty. I'm Mark Norberg, and I'm running for NEA president. For more info on this and other ideas on transforming our national union into a powerhouse for education reform and real social change, go to norbergforneaprez.com. Thank you.